What does it take to do the impossible? What does it take to level up your game like never before?
Hey there, Rian Doris here with the Flow Research Collective, and welcome to today's module, Cutting Technology's Attention Tentacles. Now we're going to be getting into some actual direct action on today's module. I'm going to be getting you to do certain things, and if you do these things, they're going to be incredibly impactful, arguably one of the most impactful things you'll do across this whole experience. So I want to preface by just encouraging you to commit to this module, do the things that we're going to be suggesting, and reap the rewards. Alrighty, so the first thing I want to mention is that it's not technology's fault. When it comes to the distraction that you're having, it's not necessarily your phone's fault, it's your brain's fault. Tech just makes it worse. Our brains are designed to always be seeking new information, as you know. The analogy that we've been using is that in World War I, of all the difficult and dangerous battlefields in history, the Flanders trenches during the winter of 1914 in World War I made it to the top of the list. And military scholars tell us that this is due to the fact that World War I was marked by a historical intersection where modern weapons met with medieval strategy. And the exact same thing is happening right now in the 21st century. It marks the intersection of modern weapons, your iPhone, your laptop, your iPad, social media, VR video games, whatever, with medieval strategy, a lack of conscious awareness of how to use these new weapons. Now, what today's module is focused on is giving you a modern strategy rather than a medieval strategy to use these modern weapons so that you don't get slaughtered by your own technology. And that means we're going to be focused on optimizing your technology for flow. We're going to sever technology's attention tentacles. That's the analogy I want you to have in mind. Technology is almost like this humongous octopus that's kind of constantly reaching into your visual field, reaching into your auditory field, reaching in and yanking your attention away from whatever it is that you're trying to do. And what we're going to be doing in today's video is slashing off the tentacles from that octopus so that you can have your attention be a protected asset again. Now the focus is going to be on whatever smartphone you have and on your computer, your laptop, your desktop, whatever it is. Most other gadgets, as a general rule in our experience working with clients, are actually a distraction for the most part. So from a flow and distraction standpoint, ideally you sort of just run with a smartphone and a laptop. Having multiple kind of iPads or tablets or other things in there can be nice. It's cool to have the whole Apple stack or whatever, but often it just results in more cables and mess and more notifications and more things you have to put settings on. So we strongly recommend keeping your tech stack minimal in the first place, because the more tech you have, the more scope for distraction. Smartwatches, by the way, are a train wreck. They are the most anti-flow device you could possibly get. Amazing way to fracture your attention at every second, be constantly available, and never get into flow. Now, digital minimalism is the goal. So ideally no smartwatches, and ideally just a smartphone and a laptop within your tech stack. Now, currently, if you're like most people, according to the research, you are losing hundreds of hours of flow per year due to unnecessary digital distraction. Follow the steps in this video and you will save literally, this is not hyperbolic, you will save hundreds of hours per year. So let's get into it. Let's start by optimizing your smartphone. So I want you to take your smartphone out during this video. If you're watching this video or listening to it on a smartphone, then you can gradually pause the video and do what I'm instructing as you're listening to the video. So take your smartphone out we're going to go through and make changes live. We're going to be doing an aggressive cleanup. And what I want you to do is just roll with me here. You may think, oh, I couldn't do that. I've got a boss who's like this, or I've got a team who's like this. These excuses are going to start emerging. Just run with this for the next few weeks. And if you need to revert the experiment and undo some of the elements we're going to be going through, you can do that. But the first thing we're going to do is turn off all notifications. So I want you to open up, if you're on an iPhone, and by the way, we're going to run this for iPhone. And then if you use Android, there's going to be details below. But if you're on Android, you still want to watch this because it's going to get you a breakdown of how to use your tech also, and it'll give you the idea of what we're trying to optimize for. So make sure to watch this if you're on Android, even though we're focusing on iPhone, and the specifics for Android will be below. Now turn off all of your notifications. That's the first thing you got to do. Open the Apple Settings app, then go to the notifications setting, and then go app by app and turn off all notifications in every single app. App after app after app. Do it for every app besides the phone and delivery apps. But make sure you do it for every single other app. And again, you can leave the phone and delivery apps. You can leave Uber, Lyft, Postmates, Grubhub, that kind of thing, because you need notifications to be able to get an Uber and be alerted. So they're the only ones to leave. But everything else, you want to put it off. And this is what it should look like when you've switched notifications off across all of these different apps. For phone and delivery apps, the ones that you're leaving on, make sure to still turn the badges off. Okay, make sure to still turn the badges off. Now with all notifications off, except phone and delivery, and all badges off, you've already regained massive time. So congratulations. But again, make sure that you actually do this. Don't just kind of watch with curiosity about what we recommend you do. Actually do it. It's going to be incredibly high yield for you. Now that you've got all notifications on all apps switched off, delete all your social media apps. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Delete all your social media apps. Okay? Third thing, move all of your inbox apps. An inbox app is an app that has an inbox. WhatsApp has an inbox. What other apps have inboxes? You've deleted Instagram, so that has an inbox, but it doesn't matter. Maybe Messenger or iMessage has an inbox. So any app with an inbox, Mail has an inbox, put that in a folder on the very last screen of your phone. Create a new folder by pressing and holding down, call it inbox, and then move all these apps that have an inbox into that inbox folder on the very last screen of your phone. And then number fourth, just do a cleanup. Delete all the crappy, kind of seldom used random apps on your phone that you have that you downloaded once for some random thing. And then disable app review requests. Go to settings, go to Apple ID, iTunes and App Store, as you can see on the screen here, and then disable in-app ratings and review requests. And what this does is it limits the fact that, when you open an app intending to get work done and then that app prompts you to leave a review, this is an unwanted interruption. And your job here is to remove as many interruptions as possible. So disable these unwanted review requests. Then what you want to do is turn on Do Not Disturb and set it for 24 hours. Go to Settings, go to Do Not Disturb. And don't toggle the scheduled option. But on a Mac, Do Not Disturb is always scheduled. So turning it on all day requires hacking the schedule to be something like 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. Many of you, though, will prefer to just have it be on for a set time, say 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. Now what you can do, once you've turned on Do Not Disturb without the scheduled option, you want to allow calls from your favorites. Now your favorites list actually takes on more meaning. This is your white list of people who you would allow to interrupt you. So you can put your kids on this. Maybe there's 1 or 2 work colleagues that you can put on this, but this is the very, very few, seldom people who you will allow to interrupt you. And there's a repeated call option to allow repeat callers to get through. Do not select this. We absolutely do not want to train telemarketers to think that this will work. Next thing to do, make your wallpaper all black and set dark display on. The absolute best wallpaper is an all black background, because choosing black destroys the idea that your phone is some shiny toy that you need to be looking at all the time. Plus, with the OLED screens, black actually saves battery, sometimes by as much as 60%, which is just handy. So if you chronically run out of battery or are a heavy user, black's the best option for you anyway. But again, we're trying to make you not a heavy user here. So make your wallpaper all black and set dark display on. Go to settings, wallpaper, choose a new wallpaper, stills, and the all black option is right there at the end. Then, next thing you want to do is turn off raise to wake. Winners check their notifications on their own schedule. Their notifications don't notify them. The raise to wake feature lets you quickly see notifications on your lock screen just by lifting up your phone. This is not what we want. It means we can't lift up our phone without getting bombarded with an immense amount of cognitive load. It's a bad idea. You don't want to accidentally see notifications on your lock screen when you just happen to be moving your phone around or checking the time. You want to only see notifications intentionally. So turn off raise to wake, go to settings, display and brightness, raise to wake, and then turn off. Next thing you want to do, add content restrictions. Sometimes it's helpful to block yourself from certain websites. I have zero pride preventing me from treating myself like a toddler in need of parental controls. Because the reality is that we could all use some strict blocks to prevent our worst habits. And on the iPhone, the feature to block specific websites is hidden inside of Apple's Limit Adult Websites feature. So what you want to do is go in here, go to Settings, Screen Time, Content and Privacy Restrictions, Web Content, and then select Limit Adult Website Restrictions, and then put in the websites that you go to distract yourself most and block yourself from going to those websites. If you've just deleted all your social media apps, then putting the social media websites in there so that you can't just use Safari or whatever to go onto those social media apps is probably a good idea. If there's news sites that you check kind of incessantly, then you can block that. If there's certain work things that you don't really need to be checking, but that you check for the dopamine hit, you can put those in there as well. So that's optimizing your smartphone for flow. Congratulations and well done on getting that done. It might seem scary, you might think you're gonna miss things, but you're not. And by the way, before the end of this video, I'm not gonna let you out of this module before we talk through how to actually operate with these new settings in place. So don't worry, we're gonna come back to how to function with your iPhone now that you've put these settings on. The main thing for now is to just trust me for a little bit and make sure that you've put all those settings in place. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to optimize your computer for flow. And again, we're going to operate on the assumption that you're using a Mac here. And again, all of these instructions are going to be broken down for Windows separately. But on your Mac, choose the Apple menu. Go to System Preferences, then click Notifications. In Notifications Preferences, select the app on the left, then deselect the Allow Notifications option for the app. All other notification options for the app are dimmed. You no longer receive any notifications for the app. You're welcome. Amazing relief, amazing improvement of focus. Next thing you want to do is clear your entire desktop. And ideally, just drag and delete the entire thing. If you need to keep some of those files for some reason and you're not using a cloud or whatever, then make a folder called Mess, highlight everything, and drag it into that one folder that's called Mess. You can worry about it later on. Third thing you want to do is remove all the apps you possibly can from your dock. Often we have a dock on a Mac and it's just cluttered with all these different apps, try and remove every app you can from your dock that you don't frequently use. Again, we're just trying to remove and reduce cognitive load wherever we can so that we can't derail ourselves as easily, at least. Then what you want to do is hide your dock, just like you're seeing on the screen here. Make sure to just follow the instructions and hide your dock. Now the next thing that's really important, and a big but incredibly simple little hack, is to have a single tab policy. Now the point is obviously not to only stick to one tab, but to consciously start from zero. A lot of people have Chrome or whatever browser they use set to continue where I left off, which ends up opening a plethora of distracting tabs every time that app gets started. And often we end up immediately blowing 20 minutes browsing through whatever we've done before. You forget what you even came there to do in the first place. And then finally you remember and you start 20 minutes late. So what you want to do is have a single tab policy. And here's a breakdown on screen of how to get that for Chrome. You want to, number one, go to settings. For example, by pressing Command plus, comma, scroll all the way down, click on Manage on Startup Pages, select Open the new tab page, and then follow the settings from there. And then from here on, try and have a single tab policy. You really want to try and, ideally you just have one program open, ideally it's a browser, and you just have one tab open. And it's zoomed in and in full screen. You're focused singularly on that thing and nothing else. Then next we want to go and disable Windows from reopening after restarting our computer. This is actually a really nice little hack. What this does is it means that anytime you restart your Mac, it opens up without any windows opening. So whenever you've got a mess on your computer and it's a little overwhelming and you've got all these different programs and all these different tabs and windows open, all you do is you click restart, boom, reopens with nothing open. You can click Chrome or whatever browser you use, and that will open up without opening up any websites, and you can go and do the work that you actually want to do. The way to do this is click the Apple icon from the top left, choose System Preferences, click and open General, and then from General, uncheck Close Windows when quitting an app. Next thing is to work in full screen mode with only that thing open. So we want to use the little green feature that allows us to boost things into full screen so that we're singularly focused on that one thing. And ideally we only have that thing open and it's zoomed in full screen so our attention is directed directly to that singular thing. Now, an amazing tool that you can get is called self-control, and this actually does a hard block of certain websites across your entire computer, and it keeps that block on for whatever amount of time you select. Super simple to use. Anytime I'm doing deep work, I use it because, again, suppression of possible distractions, meaning resisting the urge to go onto websites that you don't want to go onto, is an active process. It saps your attention. So by putting a self-control block on like this and forcing yourself off certain websites by blocking all social media websites, for example, blocking email, blocking Slack for 3-4 hour block, you can't distract yourself and you preserve the energy that gets sapped by the act of suppression. Next thing is to use inbox when ready to save yourself from email. This is just an incredible little tool, and it just blocks your whole inbox view while giving you all the same search functionality for email so that you can, if you need to, dip into email without seeing any emails. You can just search up the specific person or the specific label or whatever it is that you need without getting sucked into all of these emails and getting overwhelmed immediately with information. The next tool that we want to use here is Newsfeed Eradicator. We'll have that linked below. It blocks your Facebook newsfeed and replaces it with a motivational quote, which is a nice swap. Another great tool is Unroll Me to clean your email. So Unroll Me, it'll unroll you from all emails that you're subscribed to, that you accidentally subscribe to, so that you can clean out your email and ideally get it down to the point that only essential emails that are real and actually directed to you are coming in. Now, the key thing here is to ensure that all of these settings actually get implemented. Again, it's so easy to just skip this and view this as kind of the optional part of the training. It's a bit of friction required. It's a good example of a leverage gap here where you've got to take a little bit of time, you've got to put in a little bit of energy, you've got to kind of track down all these settings and implement them all, but do it, because the leverage and the output you will gain cannot be overstated. And if you think that you are the exception to the rule because of your work situation, your family situation, I promise you in 99% of situations, you are not. You're not going to miss things because we're going to tell you how to actually interact with your tech proactively. And let's get into that now. So the first thing is that unreachability died when smartphones were developed, and always on as a normal state was birthed. We used to be able to be unreachable. In the old days, if the phone rang and we were busy, we either just didn't answer or we turned the ringer off. When all phones were wired to a wall, there was no expectation of being able to reach us at all times. One might have gone out for a walk or been between places. And so if someone couldn't reach you or you didn't feel like being reached, it was considered normal. Now more people have mobile phones than toilets. And this has created this implicit expectation that you should be able to reach someone whenever it's convenient for you, regardless of whether it's convenient for them. This expectation is becoming so ingrained that people in meetings routinely answer their mobile phones to say, "I'm sorry, I can't talk now, I'm in a meeting," as if there's some obligation to be reachable to everyone in the entire world all the time. So we want to resurrect unavailability. We want to be okay with not responding immediately and with being unreachable. Now, the first thing that we're going to do as a key habit to stay on top of our communication, because we're not talking about, unplugging from the world. A lot of people who implement these settings are incredibly well connected. They run teams of hundreds or thousands of people. They're managers, they're leaders, they're entrepreneurs. They've got, vast obligations. They have to be plugged in. And if that's you, all the more reason to implement these settings. And then you want to use these practices to make sure that you still stay on top of your things, but without those things being on top of you. First way to do that, batching. So with emails, with texts, with calls, and with social, when you've killed all the notifications, you are going to be able to proactively go into these apps when it works for you, when you can afford the cognitive load, you've done your work, and then you're going to be able to engage and update or do whatever you got to do within those apps. So what you want to do is ideally scan email about once a day in a batch. So email, rather than becoming this kind of backdrop, never-ending, evergreen task that is just filling all the cracks and space between all your tasks, you want to make email almost into like a deep work block, where it's one batch that takes you, 30 minutes in a day. And maybe you can even get that to just 3 batches a week and only do email Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That'd be amazing if possible. And then you want to clear your email fully, at least twice a week. And when you're batching your email, having inbox zero is pretty easy to do. You just clear your entire email twice a week and scan your email in these batches roughly once a day or less. And again, when you're batching email, the ironic thing is you actually get better at fully responding to emails all the time. I haven't missed an email in years at this point because I just batch them down, treat it as this block of singular work that I'm attacking rather than this kind of random thing that's the backdrop to the day all the time. And then you want to have an inbox folder clearance at least presumably at least once every 24 hours. And an inbox folder clearance means going into that inbox folder that we created on your phone with all your inbox apps, messages, WhatsApp, whatever else, and respond to everything. You can do that also in a batch. So rather than texting between everything all the time and suppressing your creativity and suppressing that state where you would be having ideas or you would be grounding and centering to yourself, you treat responding to everything on your phone as a task that you do in a block at a certain time of the day. And then you have no phone essentially for the rest of the time. And again, the irony is often this makes us better at responding to people and more reliable. People know that we're definitely going to respond to them every 24 hours, and it's probably going to happen at roughly the same time. Whereas if you're just constantly texting, you often end up actually missing people. So being responsive here is not an excuse to not do this kind of thing. Next thing is the collapsing meeting strategy. So what we want to try and do here is take an in-person request to meet up, presuming it's about something logistical and you're optimizing for productivity rather than optimizing for connection or intimacy, assuming that is the case here. You want to try and make an in-person request a video call. You want to try and make a video call a phone call. You want to try and make a request for a phone call to an email. You want to try and make a request for an email to just a mere text, and you want to try and make a text into a no communication at all. So you want to collapse meetings down into the most frictionless, rapid form of communication. So rather than doing a phone call or long emails for minuscule things, just text, be rapid. Rather than setting up a video call to talk about something, attempt to just nail it over email. Next piece here is to go asynchronous in your communication whenever possible. And email is actually beneficial for this because there's an assumption that there's a lag of a certain time when responding to an email. So we want to try and aim for asynchronous communication whenever possible, because getting caught in a live kind of messenger back and forth where we're messaging someone and then we're sort of waiting a few minutes for them to message us back, but it takes 7 minutes for them to message us back, and then we message them back, and then we're waiting for them to message us back again, and then we take a few minutes doing something else, and then et cetera, really not effective. You do not want to try and have live chat communication like that. And then another really important thing to do is try and focus all of your emails and all of your texts and all of your digital communication into as few inboxes as possible. So for example, I try and focus all phone-based communication into WhatsApp. Everything I'm trying to get into that WhatsApp so that I have one inbox that I can just clear. Or on email, I'm trying to get everything to email so that you don't have iMessages floating around and Instagram, voice messages, and then these random other apps that I don't even know the name of that have messages. You want to try and keep it as lean as possible so that for clearing these things out and batching these things, you know where to go and what to do. Next thing is living life in the flight mode. Just get into the habit of keeping your phone on flight mode much more of the time. In the gym, at work, definitely when you're with someone else. Make multitasking with a phone an impossibility by having it just on flight mode. It doesn't need to be on. Why does it need to be on? So get used to living life in flight mode, and then flick it out of flight mode when you've got a block that you want to intentionally use it, and then flick it back into flight mode, because it's a tool that you need to use only sometimes. It's not a constant thing you have to be interacting with. Another thing that's important here is to avoid looking at your phone like it's the sun. If you're in a flow block or you're trying to do deep work or protect your focus and attention for something important, or if you're about to go into a difficult meeting and you have to pull up something on your phone, you want to literally do whatever you got to do, even if that means putting your hand over a bit of the phone like you would when you're staring at the sun, to not see things, to not see your email inbox, to not see texts, because those things can spin you out, raise cognitive load, and destroy your performance. What's worse than going into a high-stakes meeting, for example, than getting a glance at some stressful text. You want to block that stuff out, even if that means literally putting your hand over your phone. And ultimately, we want to get comfortable with allowing chaos to build up within the trivial so that we can accomplish the meaningful. A lot of people index on triviality. They want to keep other people happy with fast responses. They feel productive when they clear messages or clear their inbox. And they're distracted and overwhelmed and living life in the struggle phase. But the prizes are little responses to the urgent and the trivial. What we want to do is we want to impact people through our life's work. And that means discarding the trivial and allowing little bits of chaos, unanswered messages in some instances, or some people not being totally happy with the fact that we don't have a 2 or 3 hour response rate, or that during some weeks when we're doing big projects, we don't respond at all. We got to be okay with that little bit of chaos, that little bit of sacrifice in exchange for getting the meaningful things done, for getting our life's work done. So mess will build up. Some people will get agitated. Some opportunities may get missed. In fact, they will get missed. But it's worth it. It's worth it to get your attention back, to be able to actually work and produce and create in a meaningful way. You lose a little, potentially, maybe not even, and you gain everything, and that's for sure. Now, the exercise for today is to map out your new digital management practices after you've put in all these tech settings on your phones. The first thing you got to do is make sure to get all these tech settings dialed in on your phone and your computer, and make sure all these tools are locked in and in place. That is the most important thing. You want to make sure you do that immediately. One of the most important actions you can do of this entire experience. So please do not skimp on that. I know you're going to find it incredibly impactful, and you'll get used to it, and you'll realize that it is just infinitely better. You're never going to go back to a state where you have those little red dots on apps on your phone. I'm telling you, it is so nice to be able to open up a phone and never have a little red cortisol fueling dot in the corner of an app. So once you've done all that, map your new digital management practices. Decide when you're going to batch email and how often. So maybe do 1 check a day. Maybe you're able to get away with just doing 1 check on a Monday and a Wednesday and a Friday. See what meetings you can collapse. I guarantee you have meetings that are recurring already in your schedule that you can collapse into an email check or a 5-minute phone call or something like that. So see what meetings you can collapse and where you can immediately buy time back. And then pick a cadence for checking your phone. Once you set these settings up on your phone, pick a cadence. How often are you going to respond to everything on your phone? Every once a day? Do you want to do 1 check in the afternoon and 1 clean out in the evening before you power down? Decide on what it is. Maybe you just check it once every 2 days. Whatever works for you, but decide, and ideally it's not more than 3 times a day. Now, well done getting to this point. Really excited for you to make these settings changes and to cut technology's attention tentacles. Until next time, all the best.